Sirens blared through the suburban streets as the ambulance raced to reach Vera's home. But when they arrived, a towering metal fence had been hastily erected, blocking the only access point to her backyard. Desperate shouts rang out. "My husband is dying. You have to get through." The paramedics frantically searched for a way in, knowing every second could mean the difference between life and death. Vera's hands trembled as she cradled the phone, her husband's labored breaths echoing through the line. "Stay with me, Jack. The ambulance is on its way." She glanced outside, seeing the imposing fence that had materialized overnight, barricading the access point to their backyard. Panic surged through her. "What is this? How am I supposed to?" Her words caught in her throat as Jack coughed violently. "Vera, I can't breathe," he gasped. Without hesitation, Vera rushed to the front door, flinging it open. The paramedics were already racing up the driveway, their faces etched with urgency. "In the backyard. Hurry," she yelled, leading them around the side of the house. But as they approached the new barrier, the medics skidded to a halt. "Ma'am, we can't get through. There's no access," one of them shouted. Vera's heart pounded. "What do you mean? This is an emergency. You have to get to him." The paramedic's expression was grave. "I'm sorry, but this fence is blocking the only entry point. We can't reach your husband from here." Vera felt the world tilt beneath her feet. No, you don't understand. He's dying. You have to find a way," she pleaded, her voice cracking with desperation. The paramedics exchanged a helpless look. "We'll call for backup, but without access, there's nothing more we can do from this side," the lead medic said solemnly. Vera's knees buckled as she sank to the ground, her hands gripping the cold metal bars of the fence. "Jack," she whispered, the sound of his pained cries echoing in her mind. The screeching of tires pierced the air as a second ambulance arrived, its siren blaring. Vera watched in anguish as the medics rushed to the fence, desperately searching for a way through. But the imposing metal barrier remained an impenetrable obstacle. "The HOA put this up last night," Vera shouted, her voice laced with panic. "My husband is dying in the backyard, and you have to get to him." The lead paramedic turned to her, his eyes filled with helpless empathy. "Ma'am, without access, there's nothing more we can do from this side. We've called for the fire department, but they're at least 10 minutes out." Vera's heart pounded in her ears. Each passing second felt like an eternity. 10 minutes. He doesn't have 10 minutes. She whirled around, desperately searching for a way to scale the fence. "Ma'am, I can't let you do that. It's too dangerous," the paramedic warned, reaching out to stop her. But Vera shrugged him off, her eyes blazing with determination. "I don't care. I have to get to my husband." Without another word, she grabbed hold of the metal bars and began to hoist herself up, ignoring the protests of the medics behind her. As she ascended the fence, her gaze locked onto the backyard beyond. There she could see Jack's prone form, his chest barely rising. "Hold on, Jack. I'm coming," she cried, her voice laced with raw anguish. Reaching the top of the fence, Vera took a deep breath and prepared to drop down the other side, her heart pounding with each passing second. Vera's muscles strained as she balanced precariously atop the fence, her eyes locked on the motionless figure of her husband in the backyard. Without a moment's hesitation, she swung her leg over the edge and began her descent. Just as her feet touched the ground, the sound of a car engine roared to life. Vera whirled around to see a sleek black SUV screeching to a halt in the driveway. The driver's side door flew open, and a well-dressed man in a crisp suit stormed towards her. "What do you think you're doing?" the man bellowed, his face contorted with fury. "Get off my property this instant." Vera stood her ground, her expression resolute. "Your property. This is my home, and my husband is dying in the backyard. I had to get through." The man's eyes narrowed dangerously. "That fence was put up by order of the HOA. You have no right to be on this side of it. He took a menacing step forward. Now get back over that fence before I call the police. Vera's heart raced, but she refused to back down. I don't care about your HOA rules. My husband needs medical attention, and the paramedics can't reach him. I'm not leaving until they get to him. The man's jaw tightened, his knuckles turning white as he clenched his fists. This is unacceptable. You're trespassing on private property, and I won't tolerate it. He whirled around, yanking his phone from his pocket. I'm calling the authorities right now. Vera's eyes darted towards the backyard, where the faint sound of Jack's labored breathing still lingered. She had to find a way to get the paramedics to him, no matter the cost. Steeling her resolve, she turned to face the furious man, prepared to do whatever it took to save her husband's life. Vera stood her ground, her eyes narrowing as the angry man dialed the phone. You can call the police all you want, but I'm not leaving until the paramedics get to my husband. The man's face flushed with rage. This is private property, and you're trespassing. I won't tolerate this kind of behavior. He raised the phone to his ear, barking orders into the receiver. Vera's heart raced as she glanced back towards the backyard, Jack's muffled cries still reaching her ears. She had to find a way to get the paramedics to him, regardless of the consequences. Suddenly, a familiar voice called out from the other side of the fence. Vera, Vera, can you hear me? Vera whirled around, relief flooding her features. Mrs. Goldstein, thank goodness you're here. The elderly neighbor peered through the metal bars, her face etched with concern. I heard the commotion. What's going on? It's Jack, Vera cried, her voice thick with emotion. He's in the backyard, and the paramedics can't get to him. That man put up a fence, and he's threatening to call the police on me. Mrs. Goldstein's eyes widened in shock. The fence? But that's outrageous. Jack needs medical attention. She turned to the enraged HOA president, her tone sharp. Sir, this is an emergency. You must let the paramedics through. The man scowled, his grip tightening on the phone. I don't care. This is private property, and I won't have trespassers breaking the rules. Vera felt a surge of desperation. Please, you have to understand. My husband is dying. If you don't let the paramedics through, he'll... Her voice trailed off, the unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. The man's expression softened for a moment, a flicker of hesitation crossing his features. But then, his jaw tightened, and he turned away, continuing his call to the authorities. Vera's heart sank as she realized her pleas had fallen on deaf ears. Desperate, she glanced back towards the backyard, praying that help would arrive in time. The wail of sirens pierced the tense silence as a fire engine came barreling down the street, its flashing lights cutting through the twilight. Vera's heart leaped with hope as the large vehicle screeched to a halt beside the ambulances. The HOA president paused, his phone still pressed to his ear, and watched with growing unease as a team of firefighters sprang into action. Vera seized the opportunity, rushing towards the fence and pleading with the firemen. Please, you have to help me. My husband is dying in the backyard, and the paramedics can't get to him, she cried, her voice laced with desperation. The lead firefighter, a burly man with a determined expression, quickly assessed the situation. We'll get him out, ma'am, he assured, turning to his crew. Grab the bolt cutters and let's get this fence down. Vera watched with bated breath as the firefighters surrounded the fence, the rhythmic clanging of metal echoing through the air. The HOA president's face contorted with fury, and he stormed towards the scene, his phone still in hand. Stop. What do you think you're doing? He bellowed, his voice dripping with outrage. This is private property, and you have no right to be tearing down that fence. The firefighter straightened, his massive frame towering over the enraged HOA president. Sir, there's a medical emergency in that backyard, and we need to get through. Stand aside, or we'll have to force our way through. The man's eyes narrowed, his lips pressed into a thin, defiant line. I won't allow it. This is a violation of our HOA rules, and I'll have you all arrested for destruction of property. Vera's heart pounded as she watched the confrontation unfold, the precious seconds ticking away. Please, you have to let them through, she pleaded, her voice cracking with desperation. My husband is running out of time. The HOA president's gaze flicked towards her, his expression hardening. Rules are rules, and I won't be swayed by your hysterics. Call the police and have these trespassers removed. As the man turned away, Vera felt a surge of hopelessness wash over her. She couldn't give up, not when Jack's life hung in the balance. Steeling her resolve, she stepped forward, prepared to do whatever it took to save her husband. Vera's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the standoff unfold. The HOA president remained steadfast, his phone pressed to his ear as he barked orders to the police. The firefighters, undeterred, continued their efforts to dismantle the fence, their tools clanging against the metal. Desperate, Vera turned to Mrs. Goldstein, who stood nearby, her brow furrowed with concern. Mrs. Goldstein, please, you have to help me. My husband is dying, and they won't let the paramedics through. The elderly woman's eyes widened, a spark of determination igniting within them. Don't worry, my dear. I'll handle this. Before Vera could protest, Mrs. Goldstein strode towards the HOA president, her small frame belying the strength of her conviction. Sir, you must let the firefighters through. This is a matter of life and death. The man whirled around, his face contorted with fury. I'm sorry, but I cannot allow this. The rules are clear, and I intend to uphold them. Mrs. Goldstein stood her ground, her gaze unwavering. Rules? This is an emergency, for heaven's sake. A man's life is at stake, and you're willing to let him die over some stupid HOA regulations. The HOA president's expression darkened. These are the rules we all agreed to when we moved into this community. I won't make exceptions, no matter how dire the situation may be. Mrs. Goldstein's eyes narrowed, her voice taking on a steely edge. Well, I'm sure the rest of the community will be thrilled to hear about how you let a man die, because you were too stubborn to bend the rules. The man's face flushed with anger. Are you threatening me? No, I'm simply stating the facts, Mrs. Goldstein replied calmly. If you don't let those firefighters through, and something happens to Vera's husband, the community will know exactly who is responsible. The HOA president's jaw tightened, his resolve wavering. Vera watched with bated breath, praying that Mrs. Goldstein's words would sway him. After a tense moment, the man let out a frustrated sigh and turned to the firefighters. Fine. Do what you have to do, but this isn't over. Vera felt a surge of relief as the firefighters redoubled their efforts, the fence finally giving way under their relentless assault. With a nod of thanks, they rushed into the backyard, their mission to save Jack's life now their sole focus. Vera's heart pounded as she watched the firefighters disappear into the backyard, their urgency palpable. The HOA president stood nearby, his expression a mix of fury and discomfort, his phone still clutched in his hand. Seconds felt like an eternity as Vera waited with bated breath, her gaze locked on the now open path leading to her husband. The sound of the firefighters' voices reached her ears, muffled and indistinct, heightening the tension. Finally, the lead firefighter emerged, his face grim. Vera rushed towards him, her eyes pleading. How is he? Is he going to be okay? The firefighter's expression softened with empathy. We've stabilized him, and the paramedics are working to get him to the hospital. It was a close call, but he's alive. Vera felt a wave of relief wash over her, her legs trembling as the adrenaline began to subside. Thank you so much, she breathed, her voice thick with emotion. The firefighter nodded, his gaze shifting to the HOA president, who stood silently, his arms crossed over his chest. Sir, I hope you understand the severity of the situation. Emergency access is a critical part of community safety, and you put a man's life at risk by blocking it. The HOA president's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, the sound of sirens filled the air once more as a police car pulled into the driveway. Vera felt her heart sink, realizing that the call to the authorities had not been deterred. As the officer approached, the HOA president straightened, his expression hardening. "Officer, these people have been trespassing on private property and damaging HOA-approved structures. I demand they be arrested immediately." Vera stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Please, officer, you have to understand. My husband was dying, and the paramedics couldn't reach him because of that fence. The firefighters had to break through to save his life." The officer's expression remained neutral as he glanced between the two parties. "I see. Well, we'll need to investigate this further, but for now, I'd suggest everyone remain calm and let the medical personnel do their job." With a nod, the officer turned and made his way towards the backyard, leaving Vera and the HOA president in a tense standoff. Vera's gaze darted between the closed-off backyard and the unyielding man before her, her heart racing with a growing sense of unease. The air was thick with tension as Vera and the HOA president faced off, their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. The sound of the ambulance's siren faded into the distance, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Vera's mind raced, trying to anticipate the officer's next move. Would he side with the HOA president and arrest her for trespassing? Or would he recognize the gravity of the situation and understand that she had no choice but to breach the fence to save her husband's life? The HOA president's expression hardened, his gaze unwavering. "Well, it seems the paramedics have finally gotten your husband to the hospital. Now, I believe we have some unfinished business to attend to." Vera felt a surge of panic. Unfinished business? What are you talking about? You and your friends here have blatantly disregarded our community's rules and destroyed HOA property. The man spat, his voice dripping with contempt. "I'm afraid I had no choice but to press charges." Vera's heart sank. "But you saw what was happening. My husband was dying, and the paramedics couldn't reach him. I had to do something, and the firefighters were the only ones who could help." The HOA president's lips curled into a sneer. "I don't care about the circumstances. Rules are rules, and you and your little gang of trespassers are going to pay the price." Vera felt a surge of desperation. "Please, you can't do this. I was just trying to save my husband's life. Isn't that more important than some stupid fence?" The man's expression remained unyielding. "I'm afraid that's not my concern. The law is the law, and I intend to see it enforced." Vera's gaze darted to Mrs. Goldstein, who stood nearby, her face etched with concern. "Mrs. Goldstein, please, you have to help me. You saw what happened. You know I had no choice." The elderly woman's brow furrowed, her voice laced with empathy. "I know, my dear, and I wish I could do more. But you know how stubborn the HOA can be. I'm afraid there's little I can do to sway him at this point." Vera felt a wave of helplessness wash over her as the officer emerged from the backyard, his expression unreadable. Bracing herself for the worst, she turned to face him, her heart pounding in her chest. The officer's gaze shifted between Vera and the HOA president, his lips pressed into a thin line. "All right, let's get this sorted out."